Recording in progress.
WBZD. Hey guys, welcome back to WBZD. I'm Ashlyn.
I'm Natalie.
I'm Ronnie.
I'm Ryan, you can call me Shen.
I'm Joyce.
And we are
GT14,
architecture students from the University of Hawaii studying abroad at Tongji University in Shanghai. In the last episode, we talked about what traveling in China is like as foreigners with our friends David and Johanna. In this episode, we're shifting our focus back to the Global Track program itself. We've gotten some great questions from you, our listeners, and we're sure there are plenty more you're curious about. So, you're interested in the Global Track? Let's dive right into the Q&A session for today. So I would like to start off with asking a question that I think everyone might be curious about. How did you guys learn about the Global Track program?
Well, I learned it when I was at the freshman year in UH. They briefly mentioned it in one of the classes, and it got me interested in it since we were able to do both master's and doctorate as a student and also being able to travel to China for 1 year.
I first saw about the program when I relogged onto the website because a long time ago when I was in high school, many years ago, I saw that UH had just started the first ever accredited doctorate program in the country, but financially this didn't work back then, so I didn't do that. But then looking back at it and maybe going back to graduate school, I saw that they now had this Global Track program that Professor Clark had started in between those times. And it was really interesting to me to be able to, like Natalie said, like do both degrees and be able to come to China. It was really cool.
I saw it in Tongji, and there are a lot of double degree programs in Tongji and with the universities from Europe and America. I think this program is very interesting because its name, Global Track, and also the school is in Hawaii, which makes me feel very excited, and so I tried to learn more about the details of this program, and I found it's very interesting, and I really hope that I can get the opportunity. So I applied for it in Tongji when I was in China and prepare for materials and forms, a lot of things, and I'm glad that I joined this program. Yeah, I was very lucky, I think.
For me, I kind of talked about it in our first episode, I think, but I also learned about the Global Track program through our undergrad because I did do my undergrad at UH. So it was mentioned a couple times. There was a seminar showing us all the different programs we can go to for graduate school. But I think the first time I actually learned about it was when it was the first year of undergrad, first semester. It was online, but we had a TA that was in the Global Track program, and he was talking about how he was able to do studies in China, and that kind of attracted my attention, and I wanted to be a part of it.
For me, I think I had two criteria when I wanted to continue my studies in architecture. One of them was find an accredited program, and the second one was to have some aspect of a study abroad program. And so based upon those criteria, I opened the NCARB list of schools, try to find some schools on the West Coast, East Coast, and also saw that University of Hawaii had a program that was accredited. So I looked into those certain schools, and after researching every school that seemed appealing to me, I found out that there was only very few, I feel, master's and doctorate programs that allowed study abroad programs. And so eventually I did a deeper dive into the University of Hawaii Global Track program and saw that they actually allow us to study abroad in China. And originally, I don't think I was looking to study abroad in China specifically. I was trying to look into studying abroad more in Japan because it's just more familiar to me. But in the end, I think I made a right decision going to the Global Track program, and I'm loving it so far. The next question that we got from our listeners was, what have been your favorite things about the program so far?
I think one of my favorite things about the program that I wasn't really anticipating before was meeting lots of other students, not just Chinese students, but also other international students that are also studying here at Tongji. Like Shen said, there's a lot of dual degree programs here at Tongji. Like there's like a huge number of international students just here at the School of Architecture and Urban Planning, and being able to meet them and work with them from all over the world and getting so many different perspectives on architecture and urban planning and how things work in other countries and just different perspectives has been really, really cool. And then being able to make like good, like lifelong friendships with people from all these different places is really cool.
For me, I think it's just the fact that I'm in China and in a different environment. Like being in Shanghai, it's a much bigger city than Honolulu, so it's a completely different experience. Plus the fact that there's also cultural differences that you have to get used to, and it's just new experiences. And of course, like meeting new people as well. And Shanghai is such a international place, and you're able to meet all these international students at Tongji, which was really nice, and we created like pretty fun memories with them.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, I think it's very interesting because for the second year, we study in China, and for the first and third year in America. And changing the environment of studying is very interesting. And if you feel a little bit bored when you stay in a place for a long time, you can change a new one and meet new friends and have new experiences. So I totally agree with you. I think it is the most interesting part.
I agree with Shen. I think I like the aspect of we start in Hawaii, then we go to China, and then we end up back in Hawaii. So we're just constantly changing, meeting new people, going through different experiences. And I think that's just part of the fun of this program. We are also aware that there are some parents that might be listening to this podcast. And I know that safety might be a concern for the parents because they want their kids to be safe. And we understand that there were some safety concerns, and we just wanted to address them today with some of our experiences. So do you guys feel like there's a safety issue here in China?
I think one of the first things when we first came here, my biggest culture shock was the amount of security cameras here and the amount of security guards there are. But after living here for a while, I feel like it makes me feel safe. But it's really nice to just be able to like talk to a security guard, like to ask them questions or like for directions. And I feel really safe here. Like I'm able to go out late at night and feel that I'm not being followed or have the worry that I'm going to get kidnapped or something like that. I feel like it's pretty safe here. And I feel like if anything happens, there's security cameras.
And I feel like Hawaii is a pretty safe place.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, I mean, it was shocking to me how safe it was here in China, but it was also just more comforting that it was safer than Hawaii when Hawaii was already safe. And it was just like kind of more shocking to me that I could let down that guard of, oh, I can leave something here and no one's going to steal it. And I don't think I had a problem of something being stolen in Hawaii ever, but it was just kind of in the back of the mind of, oh, Hawaii is part of America, so it is a possibility. But being able to come to China and knowing that nothing bad is going to happen is pretty nice.
People would just leave their computers on a table and claim that their spot, and they would leave, and they will still be there for a couple hours. Like no one really touches it. No one's going to take their spot, which I feel like is really nice. And I've seen videos where people just leave their luggages out next to the lockers because there's no more room in the lockers in the subway stations, and it's just there. Like people just keep adding their luggages, and it's just like the whole line of luggages, which is really funny. I think one thing is that people are worried that the amount of security cameras here might cause trouble, or they feel like their privacy is invaded, but I don't really see that as a problem, at least for when I'm here. I don't think I've encountered anything where like my identity got stolen or things like that. So I think it's pretty safe.
As a Chinese student, safety is a very important problem my parents may concern, especially in America. And they saw a lot of not very good news in the social media in China reported about America, especially for the safety problems. And I told them, actually, Hawaii is one of the most safest places in America. And from my personal feeling, I think that Hawaii is very safe actually. But compared to China, China is the safest place and much more safer. And as you mentioned about the cameras, and I know that somebody will have a little bit worry about that. But as ordinary people, we just live in public place, and I think it's not a very big matter. And our safety is the most important issue because we are students and we have a long life to live in the future. So safety is very, very important. And for Hawaii, I think for Chinese parents, and Chinese families. And Hawaii is absolutely a very good place because it's a very famous traveling place, and the safety is the one of the most important problems the local government they need to deal with. And you can be very satisfied with the safety environment in Hawaii. And I believe that living in Hawaii can make you feel relaxed, and you can pay more attention on your study.
I agree with whatever everyone was saying. I don't really have that big of an issue. At first, it seems like there's a lot of security cameras. Every corner you see, like, there's a security camera. But after a while, you kind of just tune them out and you don't really notice it after a while and just go on with your day. And just, yeah.
And I feel like the security guards here aren't really, well, they are here for security, but I feel like they're more there to make sure like people aren't pushing each other and nothing really big breaks out. That's why I feel like there's that security. Like just seeing them there makes me feel safe, which I really appreciate. And they're more like, they're approachable. They're not someone that you're kind of scared of and like you want to not go up to them. It's more like people you do want to go up to them if you do have any questions or if you have any issues.
And then I think also with like the safety factor, healthcare here in China is also really high standard. Like if something does happen, you don't have to worry about like, oh no, I'm in such and such country. What am I going to do? And it's all taken care of and everything works really, really well here. But then also I think with safety, traveling to school or traveling around town on public transit, there's never any accidents. Even like car accidents, I think I've only seen like one car accident the entire time we're here. And so I feel like traffic safety is not an issue. I ride my bike all the time everywhere, and it's never really been an issue with riding my bike on the streets and things, which is very different from growing up on mainland US. And so even those portions of quote unquote safety is really, really nice here.
I think nobody will steal that.
Yeah, you don't even have to walk my bike. It's so nice.
I think another thing that's great about the Global Track program is that we always have a University of Hawaii faculty or staff with us at all times up here in China. It's really nice to have someone that you know around you and can help you adjust to a new place, especially because we had Clark up here the first semester and he's been to China a bunch of times. And then now we have Ben who actually lives in China. And so I think it was really nice to be able to have someone there to help you along the way. Do you guys feel the same way?
Agree.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and Ben can speak Chinese.
Like I like how like if we do have any questions regarding school or like life in general, that we're able to ask them questions and they're there.
And also our counselor people that we have here at the international office in Tongji as well. They all speak English. And so you can just ask them questions. There's like a group chat in WeChat that they have with all the international students. And they'll send out notices of like this event's happening. We're having this kind of cultural celebration, blah, 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 blah. And so there is just that super nice backup like Jun's talking about with having our UH faculty and then also the Tongji faculty just being super accessible and super friendly and helpful. But I think also just the general like temperament of people here is super, super friendly and nice. Like random person on the side of the road, if they think that you're lost or like don't know where you're going, you can tell that they want to ask. And maybe they, like me being a white person there, know that I probably don't speak Chinese, but I can tell that they're concerned. And I can go up with like my translator and be like, hey, do you know where such and such is? And so I think just living in a place that's so friendly, like the opposite of hostile, whatever that word is, and just a place where if something were to happen, which it never does, but it would be, people would be there to help you. Like even if they're not designated security guards or something like that, just general people want to help and be friendly.
Yeah.
We also know that cost is a big issue and a big factor of when someone is trying to commit to a program. So I think we should try to break down the cost of this program.
I think the biggest cost issue when we're studying here in China is the cost of tuition because we're paying for study abroad tuition. We're not paying in-state Hawaii tuition and we're not paying Tongji University tuition. We're paying State of Hawaii, University of Hawaii study abroad tuition. And I think that's the biggest cost it might prevent some people from joining the program. But I feel like we're getting a lot out of this program just being in China and being able to study in Tongji that I feel like the experience is making it worth it. But I also think that there's a lot of good scholarships that University of Hawaii offers. and grants that you can apply for. So it is a large cost, but there's also great scholarships and grants that help pay for these costs.
I think Joyce, Natalie, and I are talking from in terms of this big cost because we are local residents of Hawaii, so we
Get
get
lucky in-state tuition.
Yeah, we get
people.
in-state tuition normal on the years that we are in Hawaii, studying in Hawaii. So for us studying abroad now, I think Ronnie can maybe explain this better, but we are paying what an out-of-state person would be paying in Hawaii. So it's the same now, right?
I think because we're all paying. I pay the same amount here tuition wise as I do back in Hawaii, and I'm one of like the Western whatever. There's like in-state tuition and then out-of-state tuition. But if you're from a certain number of like Western states, they have an agreement that I get lower tuition, so I pay 150% of in-state tuition. So it's still much less than out-of-state. But that's the same amount that I'm paying here per credit. That is one thing, I guess, to note from a technical standpoint is our program is actually run through the extension school. And so we pay tuition per credit instead of kind of like a lump sum like a lot of other programs do on campus. But once you come to Hawaii, everyone pays the 150% in-state tuition rate. So like you guys were saying, from an in-state perspective, it does jump up 50%. And then we also have to pay an international school fee, something like that, which ends up being a couple $1,000s per semester as well. But I think, like Joyce was saying, I think it works out quite well, especially for the fact that living costs here are so much cheaper than in Hawaii. And so living here, it's actually costing me a lot less than while I'm at school in Hawaii and paying for everything. But the downside is that you're not allowed to work here on a student visa. And so like, for example, I'm paying everything through financial aid, through loans and everything back in the US, since I'm not allowed to work part-time like I do when I'm in Hawaii to pay expenses. So that can be an issue.
I do agree. The food, the rent, and also transportation here is less than what we would be paying back at home. So the cost of living versus the cost of tuition is kind of similar, I would say.
I also think the Global Track program does a really good job at trying to give you a good estimate of how much things are going to cost per semester. And the breakdown in China is a little bit more for tuition side, but like as you mentioned, like the cost of living is lower and it kind of flip-flops when you go back to Hawaii. I think the breakdown of how much it costs is really helpful. And I think kind of to be upfront because everyone's wondering how much it costs. I guess for an in-state person in Hawaii, you pay about $9,000 for one semester.
Yeah.
And up here in China, we pay about $17,000 for tuition.
From a like everything all-inclusive, if anybody's not familiar with the way they do financial aid at the financial aid schools, they take your amount of tuition you're going to be paying for your classes, and then they also calculate like an overall living expenses kind of thing for your semester. I think back in Hawaii, they were estimating that at about 21 to 22,000 a semester by the time you pay your tuition and everything, and then housing fees and everything like that, if I remember correctly. Whereas here, because housing is so much cheaper, my financial aid was quite a bit smaller. So they're estimating overall, like we've been talking about, that overall you're going to be spending quite a bit less than you would for a normal semester not living at home in Hawaii.
Since we're still on the topic of tuition, I think we also should talk about how since you already talked about how we're paying for extension credit rather than regular school credit. We're also paying for summer school because we're doing practicums and like we're doing some sort of summer school during the summer. So we're also paying for that as well. And that's a separate cost on top of the annual tuition that you would normally expect when you're taking a normal DR program.
Yeah, it's kind of like half a semester tuition, like 6 credits or 3 credits or something over the summer. Yeah.
I do want to note, though, because I did study in Texas for my undergrad and kind of got to see how much that would cost. This program, considering it is a dual degree program and you're studying abroad, it is, I would feel, relatively cheap because you get the 2 experiences and 2 degrees. Because I think when I was an undergrad, being an out-of-state student, going there, I think overall, it would have been about how much we're paying right now in China for tuition. So relatively, considering the cost and what we're getting out of it, I think it's a good deal. And I feel like, yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah.
I think for me, fingers crossed, it all works out in the end. Like wanting to go into teaching and being a professor, I need to have a doctor degree. And like you're saying, being able to get a master's and a doctor degree all within 3 years is kind of super crazy, because usually to get a PhD in architecture or whatever, it's like 4 to 6 years, like researching and all this different stuff. And it's not like an accredited degree, so you couldn't become an architect after that. Whereas since this is a doctorate and accredited at the same time, it covers both those bases. So if anyone out there is kind of like me and like, maybe one day I'd like to teach or something like that, I feel like this degree is like extremely efficient time wise with 3 years, but also like just not spending 6 years of tuition.
Yeah, totally. Other than tuition, there's also other costs that we're paying for when we're in China, especially because we don't get to work and earn money for these stuff. So I really recommend people to save up for these costs. Besides tuition, there's also the cost of living. So like rent, we're also paying for rent, as well as food and just clothing, things that we would tend to buy here. So an estimated cost for our rent is about 2,500 RMB per month, which is about $300 USD per month, which isn't too bad. And you're paying that for a whole year while you're in Shanghai. This cost might fluctuate depending on what year you're coming and how much the person you're renting from is charging you. In terms of like food wise, it's pretty cheap, I would say. It's like $5 per meal.
You can even find cheaper if you want to. You know, like
Yeah.
here on campus, you can eat for like $2.
Yeah, totally.
Ronnie and Shen, do you guys possibly want to share how much you guys spent on cost of living back in Hawaii? Because I know it's quite different from what you're spending up here in China
I think it's about $1,000
per month.
per month. Yeah, and it's not very expensive compared to New York City.
Here, guys, this internship was a crazy experience.
Yeah.
Living in New York. I was very fortunate and feel very blessed to have been able to live at the East-West Center right across the street from campus, which I highly recommend applying to for anybody that wants to apply. It's owned and operated by the federal government and started back in the 60s. But essentially, it's kind of like graduate student housing for people from all over the world. So it's essentially like a giant international student housing project, which is really, really cool. And they subsidize the cost of your living. So I have a dormitory and then like shared kitchen facilities and things like that. And I think I paid, they had to raise the rent because of funding issues, but I think it was low 600s per month for my dorm room, which is considerably cheaper than on-campus housing, but still not exactly cheap if you're paying out that out of pocket or with loans like I was, but still not too terrible. So I definitely suggest that. And they offer scholarships and funding as well. So any prospective students definitely look into the East-West Center in Honolulu as well. It's a good place to live, and it's right across the street from campus, which is really nice.
How much would you say you're spending on food and things to buy for living costs?
Back in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good question. I was terrible about keeping a budget. It's like a normal meal's what, like at least in the mid to upper teens
Yeah,
on
at
campus.
least $12
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
If you're like trying to be budget, or if you like, I rarely went like out on the town kind of thing, just trying to save money because it's just so expensive. Before moving to Hawaii, I loved going to the movies. I worked at a movie theater, so I got free movies, or even when I didn't, like a movie ticket in Idaho can start at like $5 or something like that. And so like movie ticket, and be like, you want $25 for a movie ticket? Old Plantation, what are you thinking? It was definitely extremely expensive. I probably should have kept a budget of knowing how much things were, but I definitely severely restrained myself on buying things and like groceries, just trying to like getting a Sam's Club membership because they had like the cheapest produce, and just like figuring out every little tiny way to make it work, or shopping at Walmart and things like that, and avoiding like delivery food and things like that, which is just super, super expensive, like probably like, what, $40 a meal or something if you get it delivered with Uber Eats or something, and just eating at home and trying to cook yourself. I don't know what your experience was like, Shen.
Last year, I used Uber to order takeout food many times. And this year, I live in China, and I think I just noticed that I waste too much money on that. Yeah. You know, just for the delivery fee for Uber, and if you want to order some food, the delivery fee can buy a lot of food in China.
Yeah.
So for next year, maybe I will buy something and try to learn to cook by myself so that I can save much more money. And but because since it's the first year I live in Hawaii, so I wanted to order different kind of food. There are not just the Hawaii food, but some Korean food, Japanese food, and also some fast food of America. But for next year, when I come to Hawaii, I think I will try to cook by myself. Yeah.
I think that is one thing of people who are prospectively thinking about joining this program, especially if you're not from Hawaii. And if you're a foodie person like I am and love trying food, Honolulu and Shanghai are like super great at food. It's like a huge melting pot. Both cities are just, you have so many options. Like even in Honolulu, if you had the money and wanted to go out and spend, you could like try a different kind of food. Like I feel like every day of the year and never have to double up on food. It's so crazy. And then Shanghai is that times like 100. Like you could never try all the different kinds of food in Shanghai in your entire life. So if you like food, it's definitely, that in and of itself is an amazing experience too. All the different cultures and activities and everything.
While we're on this topic of comparing Hawaii and China, do you guys feel that there's some unique experiences that you received that you wouldn't have gotten from the regular program?
Definitely just being in a different environment and being in a bigger city. Like one of the biggest thing is just the metro and being able to see how a big city like Shanghai is designing their urban cores around like metro stations and how they're addressing issues with transportation and trying to get more people to do public transportation, which you could see here. Whereas Hawaii, it's more car-based, at least currently. And you can kind of apply what they're doing here in Shanghai for transit-oriented developments in Hawaii. And I think that's one thing you can only get when you're in a bigger city because they're more reliant on public transportation, especially when there's so much more people. And then another thing that I also realized or I liked about Shanghai is the connection between their heritage, like their historical past and their new architecture. I feel like I've been to a lot of adaptive reuse projects in Shanghai and I really like them and I liked how they create more opportunities for smaller businesses to get better. And I feel like a lot of the things I've seen here in Shanghai and witnessed and experienced could be applied to Hawaii, which I really enjoy that part of the Global Track program.
I think for me, the internship program that's incorporated into our program is something that I feel like I wouldn't have experienced if I went to a different program because you do get to intern in the United States. And then on top of that, now we're about to intern in China, which I feel isn't impossible if you really wanted to try to internship abroad, but it is just easier because they kind of help you get that setup of trying to intern abroad in a company. So that I feel like that was really nice. And hopefully maybe in the future that helps me on my resume. And if I want to intern abroad again, that would help me.
Yeah, totally agree that I never thought I can get an internship in New York City before I joined this program. And I know that it's very difficult for students, even the American students, to find a job and the internship opportunity in America now. So I really want to thank to Clerk and our program. Yes, so I have same feeling as you mentioned because you are the Hawaii people. So when you live in Hawaii, you just feel bored for traveling because you know all the places. Although it's a world famous place for traveling. Yes, same that when I live in Shanghai for a long time. So I think I almost visit all the places of Shanghai. But actually, you still give me a lot of surprise. For example, the chocolate factory I have never visited before, and a lot of very good bakery stores. As actually, you are really familiar with that. And so I think this is very important that meeting new friends can give you new experiences, and they can lead you to the new place that you have never visited before, even you live in this area for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably one of the greatest things I mentioned a little bit earlier is just like the different perspectives. Kind of like Shen was saying, like even if you're familiar with the area or something like that, when you get a new perspective from meeting someone else is really, really good. I also feel like it's important, like being from the US and like being a pretty patriotic and like proud to be American kind of person. I also think it's very important to go somewhere else and realize America's not doing the best at such and such, or they do it better here, and it being okay to like learn and understand from other countries and how they're doing better. Or like our friends from Austria being like, oh, in Austria they do this and it's been very successful. Maybe we should try that. Or maybe China's doing this and we should try that. Or in America we do this and it works really well. You should try this. And just like this exchange of knowledge, I think just makes everywhere better by being willing to be open to those different ideas. It's really cool.
We have another question from one of our listeners, and they ask, after college, have you guys decided or thought of what you guys want to specialize in?
And it's a deep question.
If it's like a after graduation, like a short term, maybe intern or work, get my license and possibly work abroad in China somewhere. If not, maybe just stay in Hawaii and just make all that money and just travel.
Do you think that studying abroad here in China made you want to work here in China, or did you always want to work here in China?
I do want to work other places besides Hawaii, since for me, I feel like Hawaii doesn't have that much of a variety that I wanted to try. So I kind of want to venture out and try new things and see what I really, really want to specialize in and then go from there.
For me, this might be a very long answer, but there's like different points in the global track program that really changed my life. The first point was when we had a seminar in Hawaii. We got to sit down with a lot of the professors that were starting new in UH, and they were talking about their global practice and how they were working in other places outside of the US and their experiences and what they're gaining as a global practice. And that really changed my perspective on architecture, because it makes me realize that you're actually able to incorporate different cultures and work in different places and still be able to become a pretty good architect. That was one major changing point that made me want to venture out and see what other places I can work in and see what other parts of the world I can take a part in. And then the second point that changed my life was when we were in Dongfeng with Ben, and we were sitting down in Hot Pot and I was talking about what my plans were after graduation. I was debating whether I should stay in Hawaii and work in Hawaii for a couple of years before I start venturing out to other countries, because I do want to work in a different environment outside of Hawaii, just because I feel like the experiences and the opportunities might be bigger outside of Hawaii. That doesn't mean that I don't like Hawaii. I really like doing work in Hawaii and I like the people there. I've worked in a couple firms and stuff like that, and I really liked the environment there, but I just feel like in terms of the architecture market, I might have opportunities that suit my goals better when I'm studying or working abroad. So I've asked him that after graduation whether I should continue working in Hawaii for a couple years, get my licensure, and then try venture out then, or should I immediately after graduating try to find job opportunities or internships abroad. And he did recommend that I try to venture out fresh as a graduate, because the opportunities there might be better as compared to when you're working for a couple of years and you're kind of starting to settle down. So that really changed my perspective on what I should do and what aligns with my goals better. But yeah, so my current goal for what I want to do after college is probably, while I'm still in school, still work in Hawaii and try to save up for when I want to venture out. But I think right after graduation, I might start looking into global opportunities and try to work abroad. Long answer.
That was a long answer.
I can give you a short answer. The plans are always overtaken by changes. So we never know actually what will happen. So for me, I will just live one day and just take things step by step and to make the decision when you need to make the decision. And so I don't have a very long question. And I think when I think of my life, I think I just do what I wanted to do, and I would really appreciate that. And my parents can give me the opportunity to let me make the choice by myself. So I think it's enough. And for the future, it really depends on a lot of things. And I just hope that I can make the right decision. But it's just a hope.
I think for me, ever since being a teacher's assistant and doing a teaching internship in my undergrad, I really, really enjoyed teaching architecture and being able to work with students and help them kind of to see that spark light up when they discover, oh, I love design and how does this work? And just kind of that whole creative process. I love seeing that in people and being able to support them. So I kind of knew I always wanted to be a professor, but I had worked for many years at an architecture firm before starting graduate school. And I thought that originally thought I'd probably come to Hawaii, do this dual degree program, and then probably just go back and teach in my undergrad school because I was familiar with faculty there and things like that. But this program has really opened my perspectives a lot, like moving to Hawaii in the first place and meeting people from where I live at the East-West Center, like tons of people from the Pacific continent, the Pacifica, and like all the different countries in the Pacific and their experiences. And then people from all over Asia and their experiences has really kind of changed my mindset and helped me understand more things than I would never have experienced from living on the mainland in the US. And also kind of similar to what Joyce was talking about, just kind of the process of preparing my thesis and doing a lot of research here in China, and then the doctorate thesis as well back in Hawaii for next year, has really changed my mind a lot about what I want to do besides teaching. For a long time, I've really appreciated Mass Design Group. They're based in Boston. They're a nonprofit group, and I love the work that they do as a nonprofit architecture firm that really focuses on like social equity and things like that around the world, which is really cool. But I never really thought about, and I never wanted to start my own firm. Like that just seemed like way too much anxiety and like not wanting to deal with that. But now that I've been doing a lot of research for my thesis, for my doctorate, I'm kind of open to the idea of maybe starting my own firm and starting like my own nonprofit group to work with small communities and helping them and they economically develop and help them to defend their cultures and their heritage, while also maybe teaching as well. And so that would never have happened if I hadn't joined this program. If I had just stuck at the master's degree that I was working at before this, I would have just done my trajectory. This is what I'm doing, check. But kind of also like what Shen said, like finding these opportunities and being like, oh, this fits better. I should take that opportunity. That's really cool.
Yeah, I can add to that. Like, I feel like the global track program really opens up your opportunities super wide because you get to experience all these things. Like we get to do the practicum so we can see what it's like working in China or working in a city like New York. And then also being able to study here, you're able to experience these different cities and just see what kind of environment you like working in or like being in. I like the global track program because of that. And it just opens up so many more opportunities.
I do agree because in our undergrad, we barely touch on the topic of urban designing. So being able to study in China, you're able to also learn about urban designing that I wasn't able to get back at home in Hawaii because of how small the island is. But being able to be in China and just study the urban designing and the urbanization of China is better.
They have an entire, 4 or 5 story museum downtown dedicated to urban planning. They're very proud of it here and they do a good job at it. Yeah.
I think for me, the one thing I took away from joining the Global Track program is to trust the process. I was really nervous switching schools, number one, and I didn't really know what to expect going to China, but it all worked out. So in terms of what I'm going to do after college, I don't really know. I think I'm just going to see where life takes me and see what opportunities open up. I would love to eventually become a project manager. I would also love if I could work as a Disney Imagineer, possibly. Just putting that out. Just putting it out there. If there's any openings, let me know.
If anyone's listening.
But I feel like I used to be I plan things out type of person. And one thing that Global Track taught me was to just trust the process, let everything figure out its way, and it'll all work out at the end. And it's okay to be nervous at first, but it's going to be fine.
I think maybe that's one thing that we've all learned, at least I've really seen a lot in me, throughout this process of moving and changing, like we've been talking about in the 3 different, 1, 2, and then 3rd year. And moving things is learning to trust yourself and learning that you can do hard things, maybe being in a slightly uncomfortable situation or going to a new country or being in a class with people that don't speak like super fluent English. You have to find a way to like communicate in different ways, and like learning that you can do things, and like you grow so much in this program.
Yep.
Like I thought, being, you know, almost 40 years old, I was like, oh, I've grown a ton. I know what I'm doing. I feel quite comfortable in my skill set and everything. And then coming here and being like, oh, I don't know how to do this. I need to learn how to do this, or I need to work with this person or whatever. And like, you just grow so much in this program. It's really amazing.
I think to close out this podcast, we have one final question. If you could give future GT students one piece of advice, what would it be?
I think one of the main things is if you could save up in Hawaii, try saving up first. It's just because when we were in Hawaii, I was able to work while I was studying. But then when you're here, because of the visa, you're not able to work and you don't have a source of income. So that just kind of worries me a little bit. So if you could just save up, maybe that will help you while you're in China with like spendings and stuff.
And it is such a like shopping culture here. You will spend money in Shanghai.
Yes.
I think one advice that I would give is just have fun and don't be afraid to try something new, because there's so much to do here, so much to see, and there's a lot of things that you probably have never tried before. So don't be afraid to try it. And if you don't like it, that's okay.
Yep.
I think maybe similar to that, my probably big thing of advice would be to not try and judge culture, like whether it's coming here to China or if you're in your own situation, whatever. When you go somewhere else, try and understand why people do what they do. Like, for example, like we've talked about before, like the toilet situation here and the squatty potties, like a lot of people find that very odd. But then when I learned that in Chinese culture, like most people have like a Western toilet at home, but in public, it's very unsanitary to share a toilet with someone. And so that's why they have squatty potties. It's not they're so backwards here. Why haven't they upgraded? And so just like a simple example like that, like understanding why people do and trying to understand instead of just being judgmental, like completely changes your experience when you go somewhere like here in China.
And don't be afraid to ask questions, whether that's with like the Tonji advisors, whether that's with your professors or just people on the streets. If you have any questions, people are really willing to help you. So don't be afraid to ask questions. It doesn't matter if you can't speak Chinese, there's always a way around it.
I think that also goes with why we called this podcast Wu Bu Zhi Dao. There is a lot we don't know, and that is okay.
Yeah. Oh, another piece of advice. If you have time in China, I would highly advise you to not just stay in Shanghai. Yeah. There's so much more out there, like China. There's so much more places with unique, I don't know, like sightseeing opportunities and more food that you can try when you're exploring China. So don't be afraid to venture out and explore China while you're here.
Yeah. As Joyce mentioned, China is so big, and different place has different culture and sightseeing landscapes. But as advice for parents, you don't need to worry your your kids and spend too much time on traveling, because we have a lot of work to do. Yeah, I know that we are so busy, and we still have some workshop to do before we leave in China. So and life in China will be super busy, and my suggestion, of course, I hope you can experience more in China, save more in China, and try more food, different cultures, blah, blah, blah. Study is first. So I think for the parents, for Chinese parents or migrant parents, you don't need to worry. You just pay for your kids traveling in China. No, we have a lot of things to do to learn.
I think also maybe one last thing of advice, like if you're listening to this and thinking, oh, that does sound a little bit interesting, but whatever, like feel free to reach out to the program or to our contact information or whatever. Like it's not a sales pitch. We're going to try and convince you to do it. We're like, or Vanessa in the office or Professor Clark that started the program, like generally would like answer any questions you have. Questions about the program, even if you feel that it's like a strange question or whatever, feel free to ask us. We're more than happy to chat about it and share our experiences and stuff like that. No pressure, no whatever. But
thank you for listening to this Q&A session and for sending your questions. And if you are still interested in learning more about this program, please feel free to email Vanessa at vworks@hawaii.edu. That's VWORKS@HAWAII.edu. or visit our website at www.gtarchawaii.com. Thank you for listening in, and we'll see you next week.
If you wish to continue to follow our journey, please follow us on Instagram at global_track_architecture. And if you have any specific topics or questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments or email us at globaltrackarchitecture@gmail.com. And thank you again for joining us today. We hope to see you again soon.
Tschüss!